Hey guys, how's it going? Ian Davis here, strength and conditioning coach and lecturer at S&C College, Plymouth. Hope everybody's okay. On 3 weeks into lockdown now, and thought I'd just share a couple of thoughts and tips with people about keeping themselves healthy and keeping themselves safe, really, during this situation we have at the moment. So what do we really know at the moment about the whole coronavirus? I guess the main things really is that COVID-19 is just a strand of a branch of coronaviruses which are notorious for causing issues with the respiratory system. So the main thing really is that it's especially having an impact upon those people who already have existing health issues and existing issues with their respiratory system, with their lungs. Excuse me. So the reality really of this is that the majority of the population are either going to contract this virus or have already contracted the virus without really even knowing at some point. So the main thing really for us is to try and reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the wider kind of health services, hence the lockdown. And the main thing that we can do to do that is to help ourselves by making sure that our respiratory systems and our general health is as good as possible. So when we look at what the experts already know about coronavirus, is that after the SARS outbreak in 2002-2003, there were a couple of studies done looking at the role of nitric oxide, and the guy studying this found that nitric oxide is a compound that actually inhibited the replication rate of the SARS virus within the respiratory system. And there's also a proposed study that's been put forward at the moment looking at providing people with kind of external, getting them to inhale nitric oxide in relation to COVID-19. And SARS and COVID-19 are obviously related. They're a similar thing. So why is that important? Why is that relevant? So if we look at kind of breathing, and if you're one of my students, then you already know that I spend a lot of time kind of looking at how the respiratory system and how breathing and how we breathe has an impact upon our health and how our kind of sports performance. So if we look at the role of breathing is obviously to oxygenate the body and get rid of carbon dioxide. Now, because it's a subconscious action, because we don't really pay attention to our breathing a lot of people and a high percentage of the population have resorted to breathing in through the mouth. Now, that has a couple of issues. Firstly, it relies on secondary and tertiary breathing muscles, respiratory muscles, which are ineffective in relation to just everyday health and everyday kind of functioning. From a long-term point of view, that also stresses the system and causes a bit more of a stress response and activates something called the sympathetic nervous system, and over the long term that can have other effects upon our health. The main thing that it really impacts upon is that if we are breathing in through the mouth and breathing out through the mouth, we're bypassing the nasal cavity. Now, why is that important? Well, the nasal cavity, or the paranasal sinuses, is where we produce nitric oxide. So if we're inhaling in through the nose, we're actually taking nitric oxide into the system. Now, nitric oxide, as we've just said, is something that helps to stop the replication of SARS and associated viruses from replicating within the lungs. Additionally, from more of a health point of view and a performance point of view, nitric oxide is an important factor in helping the airways and our blood vessels to dilate, which means that they get bigger and therefore we can carry more blood around the system. We can also deliver oxygen to the system more effectively. So the main point of this video really is just to draw people's attention back to their breath and gets people to think about how they breathe. So what we're going to do is just run through a couple of quick exercises on how to use nasal and diaphragmatic breathing, just to get us back into that natural habit of breathing in through the nose, taking in nitric oxide, and getting it into the system. So before we look at some exercises, the main thing really to note is that correct breathing mechanics and correct kind of diaphragmatic and nasal breathing isn't a cure to the virus, and it's also not going to protect us from the virus, from catching the virus in the first place. The main thing is about ensuring that we are as healthy as possible, and our lungs and our respiratory system are as healthy as possible if we were to contract the virus, and therefore it gives us a bit more of a fighting chance. So I'm just going to move the chair out of the way a second. So the first place to start really is just to check with our breathing. So if we breathe in through the mouth and take big breaths like we're kind of taught to as children when we're kind of in any kind of sports performance, then the first thing that generally happens is that we inflate the lungs from a chest point of view. It's an upper respiratory upper respiratory mechanics is what I'm trying to say. Whereas what we're really trying to encourage is to bring the diaphragm, which is our primary breathing muscle, our primary respiratory muscle. The diaphragm sits up here underneath the rib cage, and as we inhale, what we want to do is be pulling that muscle down, and therefore our abdomen should be moving out as opposed to our chest moving out. Okay, so we're going to start off by doing seated or standing. I'm just going to do it standing up so you can see me. Place a hand on the belly, place a hand on the chest, and just think about breathing in towards the lower hand, breathing in towards the abdomen. So I want my abdomen to move out. So rather than breathing here and inflating the chest, I want to breathe into the stomach. So I'm just going to take a deep breath in through my nose. And you can see my hand moves outwards, and my hand moves in as I exhale. So the diaphragm is moving downwards as I inhale, upwards as I exhale. So that's making use of all that nitric oxide that's sat up in the nasal cavity, taking it into the system, and it's also using correct use of the diaphragm, which is our primary breathing muscle. Okay, so first we can check to see if we are actually breathing in and out through the abdomen. Okay, if we struggle with that, then it can be useful to wrap the thumbs and the fingers around just above the hips and feel those deeper respiratory muscles. So we've got a big muscle that sits deep around here called the transverse abdominis, which is a real important breathing muscle also. And we just want to see that muscle, if you imagine this is my waist, as I breathe in, it expands, and as I breathe out, it contracts again. Okay, so hands around the sides, breathe in, and breathe out. And so forth. Okay, so if we struggle to work that out, then let's just have a look at another option. So a couple of options that we can do down on the ground. Just going to use this book as a bit of a cue. So I'm going to place the book on my stomach. Okay, hands down by the side. And again, I'm just going to see if I can raise the book whilst breathing in and lower the book whilst breathing out. Okay, nice simple exercise. Nice and easy, just use a fairly heavy book. A couple of other versions to that. We can also go into a prone position, putting something underneath the belly, head down on the mat, and then just breathing into the pillow. So as I inhale, I'm putting pressure into the pillow. As I exhale, I'm releasing pressure. And one more alternative to that, let's pick you guys up again. Okay, one more alternative to that is if you've got one of these mini bands or mini strength band that a lot of people use for crab walking and that sort of thing. What we can do, rather than have it around the legs, let's bring it up around about the belly button, around about the navel, and we're achieving the same thing. We've got a little bit of internal pressure, so compressive pressure on the abdomen here, and can we get this band to use it as a cue so that as I inhale, gives me something to push against. Okay, so as I said, nasal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is the way that we're supposed to breathe. Over time we've learned to breathe through our mouths, which is inefficient. It stops us from warming the air, filtering the air, moistening the air that we're taking into the lungs, and we're also not making use of that nitric oxide that gets produced up here in the nasal cavity. So real good to just check your breath a couple of times a day. Just zone into your breath, think about how you're breathing, if you're breathing through your mouth, if you're breathing through your nose, and just take 5 or 10 minutes just to get that routine of just rhythmic, slow, diaphragmatic breathing, in through the nose, out through the nose. So hopefully you found this video interesting. If you're interested in breath work and anything to do with respiratory system, breathing and performance, then I would strongly recommend that you check out a book called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen. I would check out Chris Mills, Surf Strength Coach, who does a lot of great tutorials and a lot of great videos based around breathwork and breathing. Same for XPT, so Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese's company. They just focus a lot on breathwork and how it translates over into performance. And also Breathology by a guy called Stig Severinson, just Google him. And also Wim Hof and the Wim Hof method. Okay, thanks for watching. Take it easy, guys. There'll be more videos to follow. See you next time.